morning. Hi. Today is Thursday, August 26th. No, it's the August 6th of 2026. There we go. That's better. This is the first lecture of the day at Freiburg New Church Assembly. My name is Catherine Lauber. I am the pastor at the Freiburg New Church. And today is also tie-dye day, so, nice, yeah. I'm wearing my vintage SCYL. Yeah, very nice, and I see all the tie-dyes out there. So this morning, I'm presenting today my reflections on Reverend George Dole's article, The New Church, and my lecture is titled, The Calm Heart and the Work of Regeneration. So now, I think we all know that this process of growth, this regeneration process, is not for the faint of heart, and it does require effort, and sometimes it can feel, anything but calm as we are going through it. And we know that those struggles and temptations are part of the process, and so they're necessary, and so the struggle is real, so are the blessings that come from the successful struggle. And so the calm heart and the work of regeneration, it's my intention this morning to share some ideas from what I've gathered from George's article, and then see how that might apply to our lives today. Okay, so George begins with Mark 4:22. And I'm going to read that passage. For there is nothing hidden that will not be manifested, neither has anything been kept secret, except that it should come abroad. and so things rise up and are uncovered. And we follow the sound, and I think we got it. Yeah. So from a new church perspective, when we're looking at the word and we're thinking about regeneration, we're talking about transformation, that transformation of the inner life. And then alignment with the inner and the outer life. And so they come into full alignment and harmony with each other. The two become one, right? There's no difference between the inner and the outer. Which means, as a human being, there's no mask, there's no facade, there's no avatar of who we present out into the world. It's just us, all of us, in alignment for everyone to see, right? All the time, in every situation. Yikes, that can be a little unnerving, right? And George called it, right at the beginning of his article, his first sentence, he writes, "It's safe to say, I believe, that none of us would relish having all our secret thoughts and feelings made public." Yes, I think it is safe to say. Yeah, then that's putting it mildly. And so, how do we move through this process of transformation that we know that can be, struggle, temptations are part of it, it's real. And remain in a state that is, calm enough, ground enough, centered enough, balanced enough that we can actually do the work. And so George writes, once we realize that our faults wound us, and that those wounds cannot be healed until they are acknowledged, our text reads less like a threat and more like a promise. So yes, thank you, George. He's giving us the hope, the reminder that the word is a promise that God is always with us, and that this is part of moving into the fullness of oneness and moving through our regeneration process. But we have to acknowledge our wounds. Why is acknowledging our wounds so difficult? Well, as we're asked to examine ourselves and notice not only our outward actions, but also our motives, our intentions, and our inner drives and desires that we would act upon if we had no fear of any consequences, that really makes you sit down and have to think about, oh my goodness, what is really going on in my inner life? And this requires like a radically honest reflection of our inner world and the courage to recognize our wounding. Because George writes that to admit that our faults wound us and that those wounds cannot be healed until they are acknowledged. Here's the thing about wounds, right? We have a natural instinct to protect them. So I'm going to share a very simple example. So think about this. Have you ever burnt yourself on the oven? Get some giggles in the room. Yeah, you put your hands in there and your skin hits the hot element and right, burn. Or pinched your finger in a door. We can do that all the time. When we hurt ourselves like that, the immediate instinct is to withdraw and then protect, right? So we pull back and then we protect our wound. And it happens fast, it's instinctual. We retreat from danger and then we rally to protect what was harmed, right? And so there's also a moment in those seconds where your brain realizes the situation, right? Like, ouch, something has happened here. And it takes a second for the response and then the brain to kick in. And so everything in us rallies to figure out what was the danger, what happened. Okay, I burnt myself on the element. Did I burn anything else? Did I drop what was in my hands? Is there now a mess on the floor? Did I burn my clothing? Right? Am I on fire? Right? So all of these things happens very fast as you assess the situation. And for a certain amount of time, you're in protection mode, and you're hyper aware of your surroundings, and scanning for any other threats. Once you've determined that, okay, so nothing's on fire, I have all of my body parts, I'm okay, calm down, right? Then the system starts to calm down. It takes a little while, but it kind of goes back into calm. If we take that kind of simple example and kind of apply it to our inner world and our inner wounds, right? So think about our emotional wounding, our traumas, our spiritual growing edges, right? Like anything within our inner world that is wounded. Those inner wounds often remain in that retreat and protection stage, right? Because it's not always easy to determine what was the source of threat, right, for those inner wounds. Sometimes it is. We can easily identify, a person or a situation or something that hurt us. Or recognize a situation that's not entirely safe, but a lot of times it's really hard, much harder to determine what was the source of an emotional or spiritual wounding. And that's one of the reasons why we remain in this protect and retreat stage for a longer time, right? We're holding those wounds close. We're protecting that, and we're not going to easily trust others, and sometimes not even trust ourselves, that we'll be safe to expose those wounds. And so having the thought of our inner world exposed can be really scary. And even if it's only me that I'm exposing my inner world too, right? Nobody else needs to know what's going on. It's only me. That can create anxiety because it is, in George's words, it's our faults that create the wounds. And so we have to really do that honest examination and kind of go, okay, what's going on? So that can create anxiety, right? And an anxious soul, I don't believe, can really examine itself truly and honestly, right? And so the calm heart is a really essential part of the process. So, if it's true, if regeneration requires honest self-examination, and Swedenborg says that it does, then perhaps the Lord's first work in us is to help create that calm heart, right? Create that safe space, create that world and realm where we can do the honest work of self-examination. So how does that happen? What does the Lord do first? Every time I kind of got to this point in my writing, in my lectures, the Psalm verse comes up in my mind, Psalm 51:10. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Yeah, right? Isn't that a beautiful prayer? It is one of my favorite psalms. So how then does the Lord calm our hearts? How does the Lord create and renew a right spirit within us? We know that it's not by removing every temptation, because temptations are part of the process, right? The Lord does not calm the storms for us, take away the temptations. What the Lord does is simply helps to change our experience of them by helping us shift our perspective so that we can see things a little differently, and to change our experience of being in that retreat protect mode, and to know that that the Lord is with us, that we're protected, that there is calm amongst the storm. And I wonder if that is, at least in part, what George is inviting us to see, that the Lord begins the work of regeneration by helping us believe that we are safe enough to look. So there's a scene in the Gospels, you all know it, from Mark chapter 4, right at the end of the chapter. It's the scene where the disciples are in a boat with Jesus, and Jesus is in the front of the boat, he's sleeping, he's under a blanket, right? Storm rolls in, the winds pick up, and the waves are churning, and the boat's filling up with water, right? And the disciples were terrified, right? They were terrified. They believe that they are in mortal danger. And they wake Jesus, and they say, teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown? Don't you care that we're going to drown, right? They are totally in an activated state. They're in survival mode. And Jesus wakes, and he gets up and he says, okay, wind, calm down, be still. Right? He just comes in and says, okay, chill. And the sea becomes calm. And the boat stops rocking. And then verse 40, right near the end of the chapter, verse 40, Jesus says to them, why are you so frightened? How is it that you have no faith? Jesus is that calm center in the storm. And so I invite you to picture this story as it relates to your life in the midst of a time of trial, a situation where something's going on that's likely to create one of these inner wounds. And knowing that Jesus is right there, he's not asleep. He's there. He's going to help us through it. He's there to save us and protect us. And in the gospel story, Jesus' first action was to calm the sea, right? His first action was to calm the sea. And then his first words are to calm the heart. So notice, before Jesus takes the opportunity to teach or instruct the disciples, before he asks them to reflect or self-examine or to practice, he stills the storm, right? The first miracle is not instruction, it's regulation. He calms the world around them so that he can then calm the world within them. And it's only after the the storm, the external is calm, that he speaks and says, why are you so frightened? You know, I got this under control here. That's enough to teach the nervous system to know that you're okay. You're okay. It's going to be okay, right? We can breathe, we can calm. So coming back to George's article, he writes, what has long been hidden is coming to the surface. What has long been hidden is coming to the surface. And that even in a time of judgment, which, you know, George suggests that we, kind of looks like we're there now, where there is what he describes as a relaxation of external restraints, and where what has long been hidden is coming to the surface. Even then, as we move through this time, our faith is to believe that we are safe enough to look at what is true within us and to see what is being uncovered within ourselves and is coming up to the surface. We are safe enough to face that inner storm, knowing that the Lord commands the winds and the sea and anything else that might be going on inside of us, right? We are protected by the Lord. We are protected by the Lord. And our heart can remain calm no matter what might be going on inside of us. And so from this state, we get to examine our inner loves and desires. Swedenborg teaches that once the external restraints are relaxed, our true inner desires come to the forefront. That once those guardrails are taken down and the external restraints, like fear of the law or fear of loss of reputation or social norms or family norms or whatever is kind of keeping us contained, once those are gone, we are truly free to choose the good and the true. And if the external restraints were the only things that are keeping us in check, he writes, all hell breaks loose. Right? And so if this is indeed a judgment that is going on and that things are coming up to the light, and not just on the international or national scene, this is happening in our communities, our families, and in ourselves, things are going to come up for us. Our hidden inner worlds are going to be revealed. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing for the soul. And times of change can be scary. And uncertainty can bring up all kinds of anxiety in people, right? A side note on anxiety, we've all experienced it. I know for me, one of the things that happens when I start getting anxious, I start moving fast, right? I dart around quickly. I'm fast stepping from the car to the building. I'm running around from here. Some of you are smiling. You've seen this, but I start moving fast, and I'm wondering if maybe this is my attempt to outrun the anxiety before it really starts to land, right? Before it really takes hold. But it's not something that I decide to do. It's something I've noticed that I do. It simply happens, without my thinking. So my nervous system, for some reason, has decided that something's not safe, and it's starting to go into that protection mode. So that's one of my cues to kind of pay attention. Oh, okay. Why are you running around so quickly? And if I've ever almost knocked you over when I'm in that state, coming around a corner, I apologize. But so I'm aware of that, and that is, my work at finding out, okay, what's going on inside of me. Neuroscience, though, tells us that when we perceive danger, even if we don't consciously perceive it, right? The subconscious is scanning all the time. But when we perceive danger, the nervous system then shifts into the survival mode. And we stop being curious, right? We stop reflecting. And all of our energy is directed to simply protecting ourselves from danger, right? We're in that protection mode. So that's going to impact the regeneration process. And so when all the restraints are loosed and all of our stuff is coming up, this requires a calm heart. to make it through, and a trust to know that we're okay, and that the Lord is with us, and that God is in this whole process, going to make sure we're going to get through it, take us through our trials, take us through our self-examinations. And once we kind of can move into that trust, into that state of trust, and then we can acknowledge our wounds and know that the Lord heals them. Right? Interestingly, in Mark's Gospel, right at the end of the chapter, so verse 40 is the second last verse after Jesus says, why are you so afraid? There's one more verse in that chapter. It's verse 41. After Jesus says, why are you so frightened? How is it that you have no faith? The next verse reads, and they feared with a great fear, and said to one another, who then is this that both the wind and the sea obey him? Right? The disciples are still scared. But notice this. Their actions, they were not fearless now. Now they are curious. Who is this that both the wind and the sea obey him? Ooh, okay. So, right? So they've managed to regulate their systems enough to kind of they're still afraid, but now they're curious, and then they're able to kind of move through the process, right? That's a big difference, because fear says, I'm in danger, and freezes, or fights, or runs away, or fawns, or flops. But curiosity says, I wonder what God is doing. I wonder what God is doing. That's the movement of regeneration, right? The disciples wondered, who is this that commands the weather? And that curiosity helps move them along into this reflection and the self-examination, the repentance. And so that is the end of the chapter for Mark 4. It's the beginning of repentance. And we can do it even if we're scared. As long as we have that calm heart, trusting that the Lord is there, that we're safe, that we're loved, that we're going to be supported and guided through the whole thing. Trusting that, also, to quote George Dole one last time, the Lord sees right through our pretenses, sees the reasons we cling to them, sees the wounds we are inflicting on ourselves, and longs to bring our hurts to light so that they can be healed. I think for me, that point right there for me is, I think, at least a part of the new church. It's healing, right? That for me is a big part of what the new church is. Healing mind, healing body, healing spirit, coming into wholeness and oneness with God. That's my vision of the new church. And a big thank you to Reverend George Dole for sharing his thoughts on this and helping me to kind of dig through his article, which there's so much in there, and then come to a place to be able to envision for myself what's important in the new church. And that is indeed a big piece of my focus and my ministry. So I thank you for your attention. That concludes my lecture portion of the day, and then we're going to have some time for questions. So thank you. Okay, so we have lots of time. Yes, David.
I was just going to say that.
Oh, hold on. Wait for the microphone. Yep.
Can I use the microphone? Yeah, I just wondered, sometimes they call me from the back and say someone's online with a question, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Wow. You said so much. I really appreciate that. That was great. I hope my typing didn't disturb you guys in the background. But anyway, this whole calming, I really appreciate your saying that for me, what it is really is starting out the day with the Lord, prayer, reading the Word, going and doing a polar bear swim this morning, and then swimming a little bit. It just gets you into that great mood, and then talking to others, sharing with others, and so it gives a space for the Lord. But life isn't like that, right? Because we have so many commitments and things like that. I mean, so many times it's not like that. And when I like what you said about whenever we're in a state of anxiety, we're feeling stressed, we're feeling okay. Now it's time. It isn't time to work on it. It's time to just. Maybe I should be asking a question. But yeah, the way you explained that was so good. It's kind of just to recognize what Jesus is doing. He's calming the waves. He's calming everything around us. Turn to Him. And then you're afraid at first, but then be curious. Start asking questions, and then everything just changes. I don't know. I had so many thoughts when you were talking.
Good. Oh, well, and thank you, and thank you for sharing them. Yeah, and it's it really is, and I thank George so much really for presenting what he did for me to be able to kind of make these connections and kind of pull it out. And it's like, oh yeah, we need this calm world here before we can do that work.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of it all goes back to the 7 days of creation. And God said, let there be light. It's suddenly a new realization. It's taking a step back and just looking at it in a different way, or just giving the Lord time to read His Word, and then everything changes.
Yeah. Our practices are such a important part of the process. So whatever those practices are, important part of the process.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll pass it around unless you want to take it over. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to take your time.
Go ahead.
I had written down here, our faults wound us, something, and I'm not sure if that was something George said or that you were making a statement about that, but it was bothering me at first. And then I'm looking at it again and thinking that it was because of the sea. He was calming the sea, and I think that's the faults are coming from falsity. It's what's we're hearing that's not true. That's what's wounding us. That what is not true. These things that we're hearing, these that are hurting us, are not true things. They're things that are false. Does that make sense?
Makes wonderful sense. Beautiful. Yes, and it was a quote from George. Yeah, and that it's our faults that wound us, and our wounding needs to be acknowledged to be healed.
Not something that we're doing wrong or being wrong. It's something that is not true that is hurting us. Is that
beautiful? That's a beautiful way to perceive that statement and what's going on. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anyone online? Hello, everyone online. Who's going to say hi? Yep, David again.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Oh, hi, yeah. Hi, Cersei, go ahead.
Hi there.
Hey.
Good morning, Catherine. Good morning,
Hey.
Everyone. Thank you for having this virtual option. I love what you're saying, Catherine, and it just makes me realize that for me, it's really the daily practice of developing this inner equanimity that develops the muscle, so it's there when I need it. And it just takes a moment to practice this, breathing, feeling my heart, feeling my feet on the earth, and my head opening to the sky and to divinity. That action, playing that out in my sacred imagination really helps to calm me, just in that one moment. And I wonder about, like, if you can comment on the daily practice, like if this calming center is like part of what you do or part of what the people here gathered do.
Okay. Thank you, Circe. I'll speak for myself, and then will invite the people here gathered if anyone wants to respond to Circe's question. So yes, I mean, practice is so important, and our spiritual practices, right? So on the planet, like human spiritual practices, so whether they're coming from the Christian tradition or others. They are such an essential part of, existing as a human being, knowing that that we can affect change, deep change, and especially within ourselves. But then once we change within, we can change what's around us. And by having the practices, whether it's a prayer or a meditation or a swim or an exercise, to help us get back in touch with who and where we are and what is going on in our world. And then knowing that we can recreate and come back to that state because we built up the muscle, we built up the inner muscle when, life happens, when life comes at us and happens, and then we go, okay, wait a minute. If I just take a pause and take a few deep breaths, or maybe I was at a yoga class last night, and my yoga instructor said, when you're feeling, tossed around or untethered or something, do the tree pose. Just stand and do tree pose. That will root you right down in a moment, right? So, and all of those little signals, the breath, movement, even eating, drinking, those are all messages to our nervous system, right? It's all signaling to our nervous system to say, it's okay, I'm safe, right? If I have time right now to sit down and drink a cup of coffee, I'm safe, or some water, or do some exercise. And then, that calm heart kind of will kick in and allow us to then, okay, now I'm going to decide what am I going to do next, right? Whatever context that is in. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Would anyone else like to share? Yes, yeah, Calvin, at the back here.
It's hard not to talk before the mic. It's interesting. The story before that is the put your light under a bushel, or you're going to light it on the lampstand. You're going to put it up. You're going to let your light shine or not. And that's all about getting the truth out. That's inside. And this is a question. What I've been working on is, okay, I know my thoughts are not my own. A thought comes in, it's a negative thought. I'm supposed to be regenerating. I'm going to cancel that thought. So I just cancel that thought out. I'm going to think of something positive. But I have a tendency to go, okay, this is a negative thought. Let's analyze it. I think I want to jump into this thing and get to know it, and then I can solve, and it gets a hold of me. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Do you cancel, or do you jump in?
And so many people in the room. Oh, Trevor, do you have a response to Calvin? Okay, so I'm going to let Trevor respond, yeah, and then we'll share. But people in the room are nodding and laughing and going, yeah.
I'm a hopeless optimist, but it's a learned behavior. And early on in learning to be a positive thinker, I had all sorts of mentors about it. And what one of them told me I have to do every time a negative thought comes in, you not only cancel it, but you have to think of 2 positive things. I'm like, oh man, cut it out. I'm busy. I'm busy. So that was that was my direct response to Cal. I too have a daily practice. In my morning exercise routine, I pause halfway through and do 2 minutes of gratitudes. It's 2 minutes of just saying what I'm grateful for, and it's it's running through the same litany every day because I'm still grateful for that stuff. And true confessions, I haven't done it at camp the whole time. And
Thank you for sharing your inner world, Trevor. Yeah.
Just to go a little bit further in this, sometimes I think, I could be wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, it might be good to wonder, well, did I do something to let that thought in, and how can I close that door so I don't get thoughts like that again?
Right. I think we have a response to that.
I think our inquiry, when we have a thought that we deem as being negative or unpleasant, unkind, I think the nature of the inquiry is really important, because if we start trying to figure it out, I know I have figuring out parts that want to sort of, intellectually, like, oh, how can I have this not happen again? Or how do I fix this so I don't have this unpleasant experience? Or when this happens, I feel like I'm a bad person, so I just want this to go away. And that kind of inquiry, I find, is rarely fruitful. But if we investigate the thought from a compassionate place and are asking, what's happening here? Why is this part of me coming up with this judgmental thought or this negative self-cognition? If we're really bringing a genuine curiosity and compassion, we're considering it from a different place, and we can have a fruitful inquiry where maybe some healing can happen. And so how we spend time with the thoughts that arise really matters, and cultivating that genuine interest from a place of caring about the negative thought that I've had, the reflexive response maybe from a place of fear, really, even that sort of meta level of it can be so helpful in learning how to navigate our world when these thoughts and feelings arise.
Right, thank you. And I think that's an important piece of this question, is at what level are we engaging with the thought? Because I think it's really hard to say do this or don't do that, right? Because depending on the situation and the current state that we are in, and what's happening with the investigation of the thought, there's so many factors involved that it really takes discernment to figure it out in any given moment, what works and what's good, what's not. So, when we find ourselves after 20 minutes ruminating on this one thing, right? The moment you can recognize what you're up to and go, oh yeah, okay, this is not working. Then shifting perspective, shifting approach, and seeing what happened in that moment. And in that moment, it might be, okay, I think I just have to return to sender this, right? Like George said, put it in the envelope, return to sender. Whereas, if we're in a different kind of state of mind, a different place, a different perspective, to be able to take the same thought, right, and kind of go, you know what, that activates some fear, some anxiety, some pain, some shame, some something in me. okay, maybe that's the piece to look into a little bit more with curiosity and compassion, all the beautiful C's of internal family systems. And right, and then you can do the fruitful reflection and notice, right? And notice, okay, yeah, this is helpful. So I think it's really, it's situation and moment to moment dependent. Yeah. Calvin's going to have another response. Yeah. Well, wait for the mic, please. Yeah.
I've got to shun that. Okay. So in the effort to become a professional shuntologist is what I'm working on, and it's, yes, it depends on the thing, but also on the moment, on what it is. But somebody said, I thought this was helpful. I just want to share this. Somebody said something that hurt me, and I'm like, okay, I want to dive into this. I want to think about this. And normally, I'm really hard on myself. And when I was talking to one of my mentors, he said, if your son came to you and said that, what would you say to your son? It would be so much more compassionate and loving. Treat yourself like you treat your son, and then look at it. And that was so helpful because it made me realize I am so much harder on myself than I am on anyone else.
Yeah. I believe many of us are, and but yes, what a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at it. Yeah. Speak to yourself the way you would to a beloved, a loved one. Yeah. Thank you. Trevor has a comment.
On a different subject, but still related to your talk, I was delighted to hear you read Psalm 78 this morning. It's one of my favorites. It kind of is a real confirmation of our belief in the internal sense of the word. I mean, it starts out saying, I'm going to say a parable, I'll open my mouth, everything I say is like this, and then it tells a brief overview of the history of the people of Israel. And it's like, where does it more clearly say that the Bible is written in an internal sense? He says, this is a parable, I'm going to say a parable, and then he says history.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for that reflection, Trevor. Yeah, you got I read the first 6 verses for chapel this morning, but as Trevor said, the psalm continues on. Yes. Okay, just check online if there's anyone else online who wanted to share. Just, I think, go ahead and unmute. We've got a moment. Nope. Okay. Okay. Any other comments, questions, reflections you want to share? What a rich discussion. I want to thank you all for contributing to the discussion, and we're going to end a little bit early this morning. So do enjoy your break and the rest of your camp. Thank you so much.